My name is Johannes Ebner. I am the founder and solution architect of Structure.me. That is my freelance business. I am talking about building a cross-platform in-game store with Godot and PlayFab today. However, most of that talk will be interesting to non-Godot users alike, right? So keep your eyes peeled and follow me along. So a little bit on my credentials. Apologies, need to switch to the proper slideshow. I work a day job as a senior production partner manager at Xbox. I used to work in Azure Gaming as well. I'm the co-founder of Godot Fest, or one of the co-founders, and I am, as I said, the founder of my own freelance business that does consulting around game development. My past experience is almost 20 years of game dev experience, where I have been mostly a programmer, but I've also been in sales and producing roles. I'm a C# developer by trade, but really embraced GDScript when I found out about Godot like 3 years ago. I've always been a huge Ride and JetBrains fan, and worked as a gaming solution architect in Azure Gaming, and that kind of was when I worked a lot with PlayFab and Azure. A few success stories and references, so you know my background, right? Why I'm qualified to talk about this. I have worked on Valheim, for example, on building the cross-platform multiplayer integration together with Pictive and Coffee Stain. I have done a GDC talk on that, not really on stage for GDC, but during GDC in the Microsoft Xbox game developers channels. And I am working on my own Godot PlayFab open source SDK. It's an integration for the Godot engine to use PlayFab. It's highly opinionated and manually written, but I'll be talking a little bit about this more. Dome Keeper is the biggest game I have that is using that. I've also recently worked in my consultancy on Warhammer 40k Speed Freaks with Caged Element, published by Playon, and worked primarily on multiplayer and architecture stuff. That was an Unreal Engine game, though. I've helped co-host the GodotCon 23 here in Munich, where I live. Was mainly responsible for the location and also general orga. And I'm now doing on November 11th and 12th the Godot Fest together with my colleagues who have been doing GodotCon 23 with me. So check it out. Get a ticket if you want. All right, let's get started with the talk itself. So building a cross-platform in-game store with Godot and PlayFab. All right, first I wanted to give a little bit of an introduction on why this is a good idea, right? And I'll start way back, right? Because game dev is challenging, as you know. We have a massive market, right? We are talking about, I think, 3 billion players is the total addressable market right now. So quite a lot of players to cater to. And at the same time, game development has become extremely accessible. When I started back in the day, like 20 years ago, it was very hard to get into game development. There was basically ID Tech and Unreal as big engines, and they each cost like 250,000 euros to get a license for, right? And then I think even revenue share on top of that. So this was not at all accessible. The best thing you could do at that time was XNA framework. That was a C# library. It lives on now as Monogame and FNA. But that was basically the best or the most accessible thing that you could do. And since then, Unity has come across, Godot has done its fair share to it. And there are a multitude of other little engines that really help democratize and make game development accessible. And because of this, game development has also become extremely competitive, right? We on one side have this huge market of players, but there's also so many games that come out every day, right? And to be fair, most of them are concentrating on Steam. Now, in order to be successful, you really need to stand out. And to stand out in this sea of other games, right? You need to be unique. You need to have unique features, for example. And you also need to optimize your return on investment, because you've been working on this game a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe, right? And specifically as an indie, these investments are proportionally high in that you put into that game, right? So what you really want to do is expand your total addressable market for your game. And that means adding multiple platforms, potentially from the get-go. I'm a huge fan of that. And because many developers say, oh, I'm doing Steam first, and then if I'm successful, then I go and add another platform, right? And I personally think if you can afford to add another platform right away, you should totally do that, because that creates um, a lot more opportunity for you. And when you add multiple platforms, I also think cross-platform integrations or enabling cross-platform play is extremely important and valuable, right? You can see this when you look at Minecraft, for example. Minecraft is available on pretty much every platform, whether that's Xbox, that's Steam, no, not Steam, but their own launcher. It's available on Android. I think it's available on iOS. It's available on the Switch. It's, I think, also available now on PlayStation. I'm not sure, right? But so many platforms, and everywhere I can log in with my Microsoft or my Xbox account and play with the same things across those platforms. And on top of that, if you multiplayer a game, I mean, it's absolutely clear you need to have cross-platform play, because if you silo your players into one platform, then you will never have the critical mass to create a good community. So essentially, what you also want to do in order to increase your return of investment then is make your game, and I know many people don't like to hear this, but essentially create a game as a service, right? Where you continuously add value for your customers, for your players, uh, engage them, support them, um, and do events, do community building around that, right? Um, and with that, and that also costs money, of course, right? I think there's also a need to monetize after the initial sale, right? Whether you're a premium game at first, or a free-to-play game, I think there's always something that you should and need to be selling to your community. And that's not just to increase your return of investment, but also the player base usually asks for more content, right? And what easy is to add on to an existing game rather than creating a completely new game, right? So an in-game shop to the rescue, right? Because it allows you, next to DLC and whatnot, and even that you want to sell within the game if possible, because it is the shortest way to success, or to payment success, so to say, to monetization success, is in-game, right? You want to provide immediate value to your players, to your customers. You want to monetize players, so your return of investment actually makes sense and increases over time. And if you do it right, you can even have free players monetized via your paying customers. So adding value is the core part here. So in order to engage players longer, and really bind them to your game, that needs engagement, and engagement needs value add. And one of the things that is not a value add is removing annoyances, right? So when I was starting my career in game development, I started in browser games. And in browser games back in the day, it was super common to create artificial blockers in a way, and then have payment options to remove them. For example, building a specific building would take like 10 hours or so, but if you pay, you could insta finish them. And that is obviously not something that is great, right? Because it creates rather an annoyance or a feel of pay to win. there's one thing I would consider, um, that that may help. Oh, I'm sorry, I need to break. I think my headphones turned off. Can you say something?
There, Johannes. Everything seems fine from our side. Hello?
Okay. Yeah,
You're doing
my
great.
headphones turned off.
Well,
Okay,
we can still hear you.
okay, good. Um, where was I? Yeah, the only exception to that, I think, is removing ads in mobile games, right? Because that is a very common and accepted um, approach to monetizing mobile game, for example, right? And I wouldn't let my kids play an ad riddled game, right? But I would try it with ads and then maybe buy the ad removal. So generally, you should aim to add value rather than remove annoyances. Always be positive about that. And that also means that you should never try to extract money from unhappy customers, because doing that just will make them unhappier. They will talk about it, others will follow, and eventually you're going to destroy your own games community with that. Another core pillar of adding value, so to say, is to avoid regret, right? So if you imagine like the loot crates that Counter-Strike has, um, you if you're adding something like that, and you put in like a gun that you could also buy for 50 cents in your store individually, but the loot crate is like €2, but you have this chance of getting this super uber weapon, but you then redeem this crate, and there is the 50-cent weapon that you could have purchased, and so you have now overspent €1.50. That really creates massive regret, right? And that will make players really unhappy. Um, Virtual currency can also be negative because it obfuscates pricing, but it can also be, or the real value, right? But it can also be positive because different value of currencies in different countries are then merged into the same value within your game's economy, right? And I'm saying this also because the virtual currency is kind of like an easy gateway to creating or help it to create a cross-platform store, and that's what we're going to do today. Also want to dive a little bit more into why cross-platform, right? Because players really want to play anywhere. And I'm personally one of those people. I play a lot on my PC, and I play a lot on my Xbox Ally. I play on mobile, and I play on console, and I play the same games there, right? And so I really like this ability. I also have a Switch, right, where I like to play my games, right? So I'm I'm a prime customer for that, right? And I want to also carry my purchases across these platforms. And so I want to also be able to purchase on every platform. And so this manageability is the or one of the things you need to watch out for here is to make this very very manageable for you to maintain, right? Because one thing that you don't want to do is create like a big list of items that you can purchase on every single store, right? Because that creates massive work on your end to always maintain prices and so forth. So what we're going to do instead is sell um, sell a virtual currency or virtual currency packs on every one of these stores, which then can be redeemed in a central store to where you can then maintain all the items and the actual economy that you want to maintain instead of copying it over on all of these platforms. But we'll get a little bit more in depth about that. But how does this work in a nutshell? So first, you have your game client here, and that game client when someone clicks buy an item, it will go to the respective platform, right? And that respective platform then essentially opens the or those backend services go back to your game and say, okay, open the overlay for this, open the store, and present the purchase option for the client, and then eventually the player completes the purchase here and sends this back to Steam, and Steam, for example, will then send a receipt ID back, and that receipt ID needs to be validated over a central store, right? And that central store in our example will be PlayFab. I'll talk about what PlayFab is exactly in a bit, but that will validate that transaction ID against Steam and says, oh, is this actually valid? And if Steam or Xbox says, yes, this is actually valid, it will then redeem the items within your central backend that PlayFab is, and then tells the game about it and says, hey, please refresh your inventory. As I said, we're going to be selling virtual currency only in the platform stores, which once it's purchased, we redeem this to virtual currency within PlayFab, and that currency can then be redeemed by the player to purchase items within your own economy. So let's dive a little bit deeper on what components you need. First, you will need the integration with platform stores. Here, as I said, I would only create a couple of virtual currency packs, right? So maybe add some value progress, so a small bundle then has like, I don't know, 24 coins, right? At, I don't know, €1. Then the next step is a bigger bundle with a little bit of discount and so forth, right? I mean, you can figure that out. There's a whole lot of content on the interwebs on how to structure pricing, and you should totally think about this yourself, right? Then you also need a central backend, and in our case, that will be PlayFab. And with that, you also need a way to execute code in the backend, because PlayFab is more of a store and an interactive backend. It does not directly include scripting, script hosting anymore, but it is now attached to Azure, where you can use Azure functions. So you need both of that. And this is where you would then redeem the items, the item packs that you've purchased on the platform, like Steam or Xbox or PlayStation, and convert those tokens into an actual in-game currency that you can then, as a player, use to purchase items. Now let's talk a little bit about PlayFab and what it is. PlayFab is a backend as a service that is always there, right? So it has a 99.9% uptime, right? And nothing really can be up forever, as we have seen yesterday very impressively with the massive outage of AWS. And every major cloud provider and every major system has that, right? You can never make it foolproof, right? As we all know as developers. PlayFab is free until you're successful. That's what I always say. It's up to 100,000 users. Only the multiplayer systems are not included, but even there are free versions of that. It can do cross-platform accounts and linking, and it has strong analytics and data features. We'll be showing this in a minute, but one concept I really wanted to show, because it is very important in the context of this talk and building cross-platform stores, because you can have within the PlayFab web interface, you can have, or the structure of PlayFab, you can have multiple studios, and within the studio you can have multiple titles, and these titles can have the individual title accounts. So these are the player accounts, but these player accounts always have a master player account attached. And if you have multiple titles in the same studio, they can be linked to the same master player account. And that happens automatically if these sign in with the platform accounts that PlayFab has an integration with, right? And that is really cool, because I can just use my Steam login or my Xbox login or PlayStation login to log into PlayFab, and have this all set up for me automatically, more or less, right? So there's not a huge ton of work to do to make this happen. But to better understand this, let's look at PlayFab individually. I'm going to switch my camera over so you can look me in the eye. All right. Okay. So let's go to the main page. So this is what happens when you log in. You have an overview of your studios. I have the various studios here, and this is the title I will be working off. The title ID is always very important, because you need to reference that. If you want to add a credit card, you can do this with billing summary here. Let's go in there, right? So you can already see that I have been using this a bit. So you can directly see which API calls are being used, right? How many users you have, and so forth. So you have like an analytics dashboard already at the beginning here. There's a lot more analytics stuff down here, which I don't want to go in right now. You have players that you can see and maintain. So, for example, my Steam player here. And you have like inventories, you have friends and whatnot, right? You have a transaction history. You can see monetization stats. You can even see real time what they are doing if something would be happening, right? You have some multiplayer features like multiplayer servers or peer-to-peer, automation features, where you can hook up, cloud script functions, so essentially Azure functions. You have your economy here, and some data features and progression features like leaderboards. And content is kind of nice because you have title data, where you can store, for example, balancing variables. Okay, this is just as a quick overview, so you've seen what we're going to talk about. Let's go back to the presentation. So, quick recap here. This is, as I said, it's really free to start, and only if you're successful, you can go into pay as you go, or pay for extra support if you like to. Okay, now let's look at the process of how we implement a cross-platform store. So here's the overview. No, I'm just kidding. This is the full sequence diagram. You can look at this, but we're actually doing this a little bit simpler. So let's look at the purchase flow and how a little bit more in depth, as what I described earlier by using Steam. I've integrated Steam as a first solution, as an example, so it is easier for you to understand. And actually, as I said, most people are working with Steam in their day-to-day life first. So first, the player clicks purchase in Godot, whatever game client you're using. Then the client actually calls an Azure function, so the remote scripting backend, so to say. And like you call that function create Steam order, for example, and this function then calls the Steam web API with init transaction init txn. You should also save the order ID in the backend that you're creating, and then Steam returns order details, including a transaction ID, which you can then return to the client. But the Steam service has a real-time connection to the running Steam client, and the Steam overlay then opens for the payment to be done by the player. The player completes the payment, so authorize the payment in Steam, maybe tops up in the wallet, and then once this is complete, the Steam backend again sends a callback to the game client, and the game client needs to react to that, and again sends out a request to your scripting backend to finalize the Steam purchase. And this script then goes again to Steam and calls the finalize transaction method with the transaction ID or with the receipt ID to verify that the user has actually completed the transaction. And once this happens, the Azure function can grant items or currency, in our case, in PlayFab, and return back to the game client and force it to update the inventory. Now let's look more into the implementation with Steam. A quick disclaimer: I do show NDA content in the coming slides, and Steamworks very graciously approved the use of the screenshots for this talk. In fact, GIFs. And if there's a lawyer watching this, here's the ticket ID, so you can check this out. So first, and here I forgot to submit the screenshot to Valve, so you just get the icon here. First, you need to create a web API key. That is a shared secret that you can use in your backend, for example, in PlayFab, to authenticate against the Steamworks API. So that's something that you need for any transaction and finalized transaction, for example. But you also needed to enable the inventory service. And that's actually the next thing. So you go to your title in the Steam partner portal, go down and edit Steamworks settings, go to community and select inventory service. And here you can just enable the inventory service. And as you can see, you first need to publish those changes to essentially the retail environment. You can also first see all the pending changes and potentially revert them if that's not something you wanted to do. But now we're going to do prepare for publishing and also do publishing light, because we don't want to push the images, because that would take longer. And also provide a reason what you're doing here. So if someone on your team later sees this and wants to find out what you've done, that would be great. And really publish that. Okay, so that's that. And as a next step, now that you've published this, you need to add Steam item definitions, which you do on the same page, but this is how this looks. So you essentially have a JSON object with your app ID, and then also you have a list of items, an array of items, and each of them has an item definition ID that is always an integer. You can choose yourself, and then you can define it, what kind of item it, or what type it is, name, and so forth. Specify icons, and whether it's tradable, marketable, or whether it should be stacking. Now you can create this item definition JSON, add all the items you want, and when you're done, you need to upload this. And as I said, it's the same page as enabling the inventory service. Just need to scroll a little bit down to the very bottom and choose the file to upload. Yes, I have a typo in there. And once it's uploaded, you can see the uploads. I'm sorry I didn't pause the GIF there, but you can see that I've now these 3 items added. Okay, and then last but not least, you need to set the Steam asset server key that allows then to connect external systems to that. And we just use the web API key that we have created earlier. Now the next step is to set up the Steam add-on or the economy in PlayFab. So what I've first, you also need to enable the Steam add-on or whatever other platform you're using, whether that's PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, Google. There's plenty of those, and here you just need to add your Steam application ID or whatever identified is for the other platforms, and then a web API key. You can also enable the sandbox endpoint here, and once that's done, you're good to go. You also need to enable economy v2. That in fact requires a credit card, but it's still free for the for 150,000 requests, so that's quite a lot. But how to enable that is a little bit hard because the economy, it's a it's a very fresh feature, and there was a new UI glitch right now where the economy tab is empty, so you don't see it immediately. As I said in the earlier demo, you would need to go to the studios, click here, and add billing summary. This is where you can add it then. Okay, now let's look live at the economy setup. Where are we here? Okay, let's go to the economy. So as you can see, first on the top, there was a legacy part of that. We're not using that, and I would encourage you to not use it, but use the economy v2. And so you can define items, currencies, UGC stuff, bundles. You can create actually multiple stores, and you can also create subscriptions. So what we're going to do first is we create a currency. I've obviously pre-created that, so nothing happens here. So we just go in here, and you can, what I'm doing here is enter draft item, but it would be the same experience when you create a new item. Demo mode, great. I'm just imagining you laughing. I hope that's true. Let's try this again. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so you can see there's already quite a bit of stuff that you can add, right? So let's get through this a little bit. So the item ID is automatically assigned GUID by PlayFab. Then you could select what the entity type is. That is usually either title, which means it's game level and can only be edited on by admins basically, or it could be a player where you could allow players to create their own items if you want in one of the stores that you've defined. But we're doing this on a title level. The creator entity ID is in that case the title ID. Otherwise, it would be the player and the master player ID or the title player ID. You can give it a friendly ID like currency underscore Godot or whatever. Then you can give it a title. And as you can see, this is JSON. So this means that you can already add localized titles in here, which is kind of neat if you want to do this. You can do the same with description, or you actually have to do. So there's always a neutral one if you don't. So that needs to be set. You can also do a lot of other customizations with creating your custom content types. You can add display properties as JSON. You can add versions and tagging and so forth, right? You can also make it hidden. You can also make them available only between certain timeframes. So that is very, very cool if you do some promotions. You can even add files to them, right? Like actual supplements or higher definition textures, or I don't know what, or sounds. And then images. We're talking about platform and prices when we actually do the bundles. So I'm just editing this again so I can show you one more thing. Because you can save items or currencies or whatever in a draft state and also in a published state. And you can so prepare stuff in a draft mode and later publish them. Yeah, so this is really demo mode. Oh, by the way, some of the pieces of PlayFab, I think, are hosted on AWS, so that's maybe why. All right, now we have the currency. We create bundles for it. And the bundles are actually what we're going to sell on Steam or on the other platforms. So let's set this up as well. Here, so I've set up the GoBox 25 thing. So that's a 25 pieces bundle. Oh yeah, I love this. The demo gods are not with me. Great. I did say nothing is up forever. Well, cool. Let's try this on another tab with currencies. Maybe I can at least show you something. Yeah, because it's got this cached. So, come on. Well, so we essentially do the same thing for the bundles, right? But the bundles also include this currency. So the bundle would have 25, an amount of 25 of this currency, and we would also have a platform integration where we say Steam, and then we enter the Steam ID and its price on Steam to make it able to reference that, right? Because when you initiate the purchase with a platform, you not only need to provide their ID, but also their price as a kind of like a verification that you're doing the right thing. Okay, I'll try it one more time and then I'll skip it. Yeah, that's not looking good. Okay, let's go back. So let's carry on. I hope the other live demo then works. Anyways, so you might have been wondering where Godot is, right? So here's a quick intro in what I did. So for this talk specific, or no, over the last couple of years, I wanted to build my own game, as so many Godot developers do this. It was just a hobby project. I also wanted to add some things with PlayFab, right? And then I became a tool developer because I really enjoyed building tools, and I've decided to like make a proper Godot PlayFab integration. And here I am today talking to you about the integration of PlayFab and PlayFab economy with to build a cross-platform store. So Godot PlayFab is, in contrast to the official SDKs, is a handcrafted, very opinionated version of the SDK. And I don't have the full feature set covered. I mean, I have methods for you to use the full REST API of PlayFab, but I have created opinionated implementations of all these pieces. So for example, the authentication, you can use username and password registration, you can use anonymous logins, you can use platform logins. Steam is the only one that is currently implemented, but I'm working on the others soon. I have events integrated, telemetry just for pure data collection for analytics, but also PlayStream, which allows you to almost real time react to stuff players do. I've integrated title data, which is essentially balancing. You can do title news and whatever. I've done the Steam integration with Godot Steam by Grams. And now for this talk, I have added Economy V2 support. And so let's look into how that actually works. So I've, by the way, built this with using Rider, which is absolutely great because they have been adding Godot 4. GDScript 4.5 support, and that is really great because it helps you a lot with typing here. So I've already started the Godot editor, but I don't need it. I just need it as a runtime. The cool thing about Godot PlayFab that I have is not only the SDK integration, but also I provide ready-to-use reference implementation. So you can just that are very simple. So you can essentially either use that as a starter or just copy and paste some of the code into your project, right? And understand how it works. Now let's use the Steam login right away. So you can see, I mean, it looks boring, but it is here to show you the functionality and not clutter everything with, additional stuff. So this is what you get upon login. All this data, that's already pretty useful. But you can also get, title data, like, balancing for your game or whatever. You can do data writing, like telemetry events that is just purely for data, or you can also use PlayStream, so you can act in almost real time to what players are doing, right? So if I send a PlayStream event, you will see this coming up here, which is pretty neat because you can inspect that right away, and there's also quite some data sent with that. So that's really neat. And going back, you can also then, I've implemented now the economy features, where you can display the catalog, so all the defined items and currencies, and also have your inventory here. So I have 5 Godot Fest shirts. I don't have a currency, so let's go and give me some currency so I can actually buy something. Do I have the player open here? So, all right. So here we have the inventory for the player. You can see I have that. So now I want to add some currency. Um, add, add a currency. And I want to add, let's say 100 of those Godots, add them. So I can go back, refresh my inventory, and now I have my currency here. So I only have a shirt. I also want to have a hat. So I go to the catalog and let's buy a Godot Fast hat for 15 Godots. Let's go. And I've purchased that, and now if I look in my inventory, I obviously have the hat. Oh, it was already refreshed, and the currency has been deducted. And of course, we want to do this also with Steam. I have a very limited demo here for that. So I have the Godot Bug 25 thing. I do the purchase with Steam. I will click on this, and then I need to move the client on the side because otherwise Steam will spoil my home address to everyone. So bear with me. Also, I have a little bug right now, so this is not fully like production ready just yet, but it will be in the coming weeks, where I have like a little bit of delay. I don't know where this is coming from, so bear with me for a second. So you can see a little bit of that aside. In the meantime, we can maybe look at the code a little bit. It just, as I said, initiating this in the client. So once we've started that, purchase button started. So we send the purchase item request here with the item ID, how much, and the price. And then go and send the request data to the Steam backend or to our Azure function, which actually runs over here. Let's start from the top. That is C# code here, where we just like parse the request, pack it in the request object that Steam is doing. That is still a proof of concept. So we want to do client validation here as well, and then send the Steam transaction in it to Steam. and then parse that and send it back to the client. And once this is received by the client, then we can go ahead and send this back. I'm sorry, and send this back to the client, and that will initiate because Steam will send the signal back. Will initiate the purchase flow. Can I please? I cannot move. This is stupid. I cannot move. What's going on? You'd be kidding me. Here we go. So now I have this this item pop up. I paid a $25. I authorize the payment, and when we do this, you will see here the output. Where's the output window? Oh, come on. Authorize this. And again, I have this weird delay in there. I can't figure out, or couldn't figure out. I got a few curveballs thrown at me with this integration, but it eventually worked out. There's a particular problem with the Steam overlay that I could not figure out for the life of me. Just before the talk, today I figured it out. And so here we go. This is the purchase has been completed. I've just received an email, and we're good to go. I need to go back to the presentation because we're running out of time. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about security. So security, when purchasing stuff or when selling stuff, extremely important, right? Because you can lose a lot of money, obviously, and you can maybe even get a bad reputation out of that. So first, the most important thing is zero trust, right? So never trust the user, or particularly not the game client, because the game client can be manipulated and can even be manipulated potentially without the knowledge of the user. So always verify that. And that's also why this payment process that you've seen and that I've described is a little bit involved, right? And it takes all the control away from the client, essentially, right? Just this user interaction in the Steam client that is really controlled by Valve, and that is the same on console, right, or on the Xbox app on PC or whatever. That is a controlled real estate of the platform provider, and they make a lot of effort to secure that. And that's also why you just get back this transaction ID that you send then again to your game's backend to validate against the platform. The other thing is fraud prevention. And the fraud prevention starts very early on. That even starts before the purchase. So fraud not only hurts you financially, but can also destroy the game's economy. And so this is why it's so important to start as early as possible with that, right? Always keep that in mind. And as I said, it starts even before initiating the purchase, because a new user, a new player to your game is not gonna buy something for 200 euros, full stop. They're not, and they shouldn't, right? If they're in for 10 minutes, there should be no reason for them to spend another big lump sum, right? Maybe you can allow them to spend 1 or 2 euros, right? So the damage, if that gets a chargeback, is not high. So always use the knowledge of your players to not allow unrealistic actions, right? do not allow them to buy stuff for excess value, right? That is nonsensical in the scope of your game. And also, and that is a two-edged sword, do not allow transfers to other accounts, at least not virtual currency. That is a big no-no in my opinion. Trade, on the other hand, can be a really good positive thing for you to do in your economy, and to do player satisfactory stuff, specifically when you monetize, when you want to monetize free players over the paying players, right? Yeah, so that would be the basic suggestions here. Then also every platform has a clawback service, to my knowledge, and that clawback service is something that kicks in when there is a chargeback, for example. So as you know, every payment provider provides usually the ability to cancel or revoke a payment. That recently happened to me in that fraud scenario, and to AWS, right? I got two Visa charges for $1,000 each, and that was for AWS. So somebody obviously used my credit card to pay their AWS bill. I don't have AWS estate, right? So I immediately called Visa and said, these are fraudulent charges. Please revoke. Here's also the police report. Then I have filed this, and they did a chargeback immediately. So now AWS is the one who is out of $2,000, right? Because they have allowed this payment to be accepted, essentially, and they have settled the bill. But now they need to claw back that what they have provided in value to that user. So they are probably going to claw back the credits they have been giving to this user. And the same is true for when you do a clawback, so or a rollback happens. So Steam or whatever platform tells you, hey, there is a chargeback. We try to claw back that. So they will probably do this automatic already if it is still the first party. So if they have purchased the currency and have not transferred it, then they will just remove it from the inventory of the player. If that's if they have already transferred it, then they will notify you as a backend, essentially, right? And your backend needs to figure out how to resolve that, and that can be very complicated, particularly if you have a cross-platform store where you can only buy currency on the platform. All right, I think that's it. A few resources here on microtransactions, on Steamworks, a link to Azure PlayFab, and then, of course, a link to Godot PlayFab as well. I'm not sure if JetBrains is making this available later on, but I'm sure we can make it happen. All right. Otherwise, you can reach out to me over my email, or I'm structured everywhere except on LinkedIn, where I go by my real name. All right. Thank you so much. I'm pretty much on time, I think, with 59 minutes. Okay.
Yep, works for me. That's good. It's the usual thing, isn't it? You've got your nickname everywhere apart from LinkedIn, where you have to be sensible and grown up.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I've also created my personal brand about that structured thing, so I better use that.
Well, exactly. This is back in the day when the internet was all about nicknames and things. Anyway,
Yeah.
and I'm digressing. Firstly, yes, we are going to be making the videos available. So obviously, this stream is going to stay up, and people can link directly to the section. But we'll also be splitting the videos down and making them available separately, so we can make this video available. And we will be sharing those links with everybody who has registered. So we'll email to let you all know.
Awesome.
So yeah, firstly, thank you very much for a great talk there. It looks like a fantastic service to use for helping you with inventory and currency and everything like that. Unfortunately, we're all being hit by the demo gods today, I think, isn't it? I think we're all feeling the after effects of the AWS quake that's happened.
It happened. It worked earlier today, so I'm particularly bummed.
You don't need to tell me these things. I'm having a lot of fun back here trying to make sure everything I'm doing is working well. The other thing to say as well is that chat like your shirt. So
Lovely.
that's clearly, yeah.
That is the Godot Con 23 shirt. So maybe we have some in stock left. I don't know.
I see. Well, if you need a shirt, then hit Johannes up. This is a good one. Where are we? So, Alex, do you have any questions you want to fire off?
Sure. I think it was from the audience. Like, why would you create like multiple stores? Economy V2 tab allows for creating multiple.
Yeah, so that is particularly useful if you have a store-heavy game, like look at Diablo, right? So Diablo has many sellers in the game, because those stores you can not only use for real money, but you can obviously use them also for in-game content. So if you have Deckard Cain sell stuff to you, and then there is other vendors there, you can actually separate them out, and that is really cool to manage the content there.
Do you have to do anything different sort of on the client side to make that happen, or is it sort of automatic? Do you have to know to be calling the right store?
Yes. So basically, what you can do is you can fetch the inventory and say either give me all of it, and then all items have like a store name in them, in a result, or you can also search by store, right? So I only want to have Deckard Cain, basically, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could say that.
Okay. And if you're like if you're doing some kind of game where you go to different actual stores in the game, would you treat that as a different store in the back end as well, or would you handle that differently?
Yeah, I would handle it. I would give it a real money store and then like an in-game store, right? So in the real money store, I would just handle those currency packs that I'm actually selling on the platform stores, and then have the separate in-game store where I can then only pay with the virtual currency that I've redeemed.
Mm-hmm. Oh, Alex looked like he was about to follow up on that one.
No, I was just like trying to wrap my head around. Like, this is the hot topic. Like, every game almost, especially RPGs, have the like multiple stores, and especially the more mobile world you go, the more currencies the stores you have. Like, sometimes you would have like 8 stores in a single tab, one for like because you have multiple currencies, and each currencies are like can be transferred, and they paying for different stuff. They convert differently for the real money. So yeah,
I
this
think
is like
Magic the Gathering Arena is a prime example of that. You have a couple of stores there.
The mobile world is notorious for these like dark marketing tendencies with multiple how to say the currencies that actually made to like puzzle you.
Yeah, I actually wanted to reference. I did this in my rehearsals. The Dungeon Keeper mobile game. I'm not sure if everyone here is old enough to know that game, but it was back in the day. It was an absolute fiasco because they drove it so hard with these annoying features that you needed to remove with payment, and it was absolutely atrocious, specifically for the fans of the Dungeon Keeper games back in the day, right? Now getting this mobile game that is nothing like it, right? And just riddled with in-game purchases, so you can actually play it, right? I mean, you needed to pay so much money in-game that you would actually be able to play something.
Right. I mean, in my world, the mobile version has never been released.
Like the additional Matrix films. I hear that.
This could go off on a completely different thing now.
Yeah,
we could spend the rest of the afternoon discussing
don't dive
all
into
the
that.
movies that haven't been released.
Yes.
Yeah. So I was going to ask a question then about the fraud prevention. You were mentioning that you wouldn't allow people to transfer balances. I wonder if you could dive into sort of why you give that advice.
Yeah, because it's very quick to move that and kind of like hide that, because so this is a way to escape those clawback mechanisms usually, because you buy this virtual currency and then immediately redeem that and transfer it to another account, and potentially multiple ones. So that is an extremely common attack vector on these purchases. So I would not allow transfer of virtual currencies because of that. So you need to buy something with it in order to be able to then trade that item, right? Which makes it a little bit harder for these for fraudsters, and even makes it harder for services that help you gain in-game money or whatever, right? Because that's another thing you actually don't want to have, right? The WoW gold farmers or whatever, right? I mean, Blizzard has been at war with them for, I don't know, 20 years now. So yeah, that's one way of doing that. But the solutions are always very, very bespoke to your game, I would say, right? I mean, one solution never fits them all.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you don't necessarily think about, or that you need to think about to sort of see how people are gaming this kind of thing.
Yeah. On the value of trading and general value, I think there's a great talk by Valve from way in the back in the day that is linked on this microtransactions page that I find very interesting on this whole thing of value, providing value to your players. You should give that a try.
We've got a question from chat which is asking how one would implement limited time or discounted bundles.
Yeah, so this is as I showed, when you create items, then you can create essentially set a start and an end time, right? And within that you could set various prices, for example. So what I've also done is you can create staggered prices. In my demo, you might have seen one of the items that had 2 buy buttons below that. So for the amount of you buy one, I might actually be able to show that. Do I still show? Can you show my screen to the audience?
Yep, you're back on the screen.
Okay. So when we're here in the catalog, I have this setup, for example. So you can buy one piece for 20 Godot or 2 pieces for 30 Godot. And that is a very easy setup here when you look in the economy.
I like that it's called an economy, by the way. That's just kind of nicely wraps everything up.
Yeah. Wow. No items. That's great. Now I can blame everything on AWS. That's cool.
Oh, we did notice that everything stopped working when you reported your card as being scammed.
Yeah.
It's like somebody's still trying to pay for AWS with your card and it's no longer working.
Well, I'd love to show you, but I've defined for this item, I've defined 2 prices. So one is the default one amount price, and then you can have like a discount price if you buy multiple of one. Yeah, that's that.
Yeah. Another question then, I guess. Are there any best practices on handling different real currencies?
Yeah, so as you know, there is always a lot of price fluctuation in the world, right? First, we have countries with wildly different values of their countries, right? And so you pay more in the European Union than you would pay in Vietnam or somewhere in Africa, right? Or in Brazil. So you need to alleviate that. And usually, these first party platforms, they do this value conversion for you as well. So what you often do is you just create a US dollar equivalent, and that will then be converted into that local currency, right? And also they fluctuate a lot because of inflation. So for example, Argentina has an extremely high inflation, same Turkey, right? So these need to be actually adapted multiple times a day. So it's often clever to use the platform's conversion mechanisms to do that. So that's why I would recommend, for example, to specify US dollar values within PlayFab. And then, as you might have seen in the demo, I specified 25 US dollar cents. And when the purchase dialog actually comes up in the game client, it converts this back into euros, right? So my local currency, and so I can then buy that. But with every store, if you want to adapt to the local pricing, you can also do local currency equivalents directly.
Right.
But I would always recommend the US dollar equivalent so you can have the same value everywhere.
Okay. Next question, I think, would be what's the biggest technical challenge in setting up a cross-platform store?
Yeah, integrating those first parties, right, and actually getting the abstraction right. And that is, in fact, I have to say, a big problem in Godot, because we don't have preprocessor statements there just yet in GD script. If someone's listening and wants to contribute, please do that. So it's
no,
it's really
preprocessor
challenging.
things are horrible. Don't add them. Never add preprocessor things into a language.
Or another way of removing cross-platform stuff, right?
Thank you.
Because that is, it is hard to currently to remove, the platform-dependent SDKs, right, without completely forking the project. So this is a problem, and then the abstraction of those platforms, right? Because while the general principle is always the same, they all work a little different, right? And need a little different workflows and a little bit of different data. So that's challenging. And in this particular case, I think, with Godot and Godot Steam, was actually the Steam UI actually showing up. That was the biggest curveball. It only works if you export the game, or within the editor, you need to set it to the compatibility layer renderer to make it work in the debug window. It's weird. Something to do with drivers. I don't know, and how Steam injects it.
Yeah, no idea. And that's where you do hit those sort of technical blocks, isn't it? Where it's just like, okay.
And you spend you spend the majority of the time on this like little crappy things, right? That are actually not really something you wanted to do.
Yeah. The smallest features always take up the biggest amount of time. Do you find it useful that Godot itself is open source? You mentioned suggest. Sorry, I missed that. I talked over you.
No, it is absolutely fantastic. I think it gives a lot more flexibility to people, right? I also like the extension system that helps you hook into that, and it also explodes in the ecosystem in a way that so many things, because the base engine is MIT open source, so many add-ons are MIT open source, and that influences the whole community in general, right? So it is very cool to find stuff that you can actually work with, that you can help maintain, right, and actually adapt when it's not working. Because I've been working a lot with Unity in my professional career, and what I've seen often is like, there's this great plugin, but it's outdated, but I really need that one, right? And there's no other alternative, and I'd be happy to fix it, but it wasn't open source, so I couldn't find the maintainer, and you lost there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The Godot PlayFab stuff is open source, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So it is that was influenced by the same thought, right? And right now, I'm actually looking for people to help me expand that ecosystem, because I want to really reach all the other platforms. I work for Xbox, so this is probably next, or Google, because mobile developers have asked for it. But I would very much appreciate if if somebody's interested to helping out introducing new platforms.
We shall have to share the link in the chat then and see if anybody would like to join in. This is good. Just before we wrap up, one last quick question from chat there is how about subscriptions? So items that only have one instance can be had at once, and after a while they run out.
So technically that's supported in Godot in PlayFab. So you can use this in Godot PlayFab as well. I have not played with it, to be very honest, but yeah, I think that's exactly that.
Okay, well, it's nice to know it's supported. I think unless Alex has got anything else, we could wrap it up there.
No, it's good for me.
Oh, that's cool. Great. Well, Johannes, thank you again for a great talk. Lots of useful things there. Send us the link and we'll put it in the chat, and hopefully somebody will help to join in. And
I will. All right.
And help
Thank you so
out.
much. Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
And we shall see you at Godot Fest.
We will. Good to see you there.
Bye-bye now.
Bye.